Director Lau said other things. I will not repeat my introduction because everyone knows already. But there are a few things that struck me was that on one hand, the unclear number of the death toll is very interesting because so far the government still does not want to acknowledge or to reveal the real truth of that event. And also, that's one thing. The other thing is that someone from the audience, Yu Jinbo, said that this is the first time he heard that someone proved, sort of, okay, or claimed the official, the involvement, the evidence of the shooting. It's first time. Otherwise, people don't dare to say it. That's why we know from the Indonesian case, the government doesn't want to say it. The generation was silenced, and contemporary population, they don't know it, or they don't want to say it. Okay, they don't want to acknowledge it. This is just silence. Okay, we talked about this, different meanings of silence. This is just a silence part. Of course, the scenario or the event is similar to 228's event in Taiwan. Okay, Taiwanese were chased by managers. Well, the managers were chased by Taiwanese people. But the Taiwanese local people also protected those people who were victimized or chased in the streets. Okay. Everything, of course, became more serious when the government shook came in. Okay, the huge suppression. So the death toll could be 8,000 to 18,000. Okay, with a report. But here we don't only hear this number 160. But a truck with 30 people in the trucks for 4 or 5 days and even more. So the death toll might be more. But of course, the insurgency or the Sedition Act or this curfew lasted. Okay, that also reinforces law. The law or racialization. Okay, that's being reinforced after this event. That is, of course, what's also very similar to the Indonesian case. So so-called citizenship, okay, those who lived there as mestizo, the Mapapa Nyangre, who lived there for 400 years, could not choose to be local. They have to choose to become Chinese, okay, on their ID card. So that also was affected by that event. But I believe there must be more, okay, and more that we don't know, and our Malaysian friends here, students and colleagues here, will know more. But also there are other similar cases in other places, South Africa, Indonesia, Vietnam, and China, of course Taiwan. Okay, so, and South Korea, of course. Okay. So, we let Director Lau to say some more. Okay, then we open up for discussion. Okay.
Hello, thank you again for coming for the screening. I hope you don't fall asleep in the middle of the documentary. Okay, let me brief a bit about the motivation of how I start to make this documentary. I visit Orang Asli Kampong, Ming village, a few years ago. I was invited by Orang Asli, who used to be communist soldiers, because of my previous documentary. So I have an Orang Asli friend. He said, why not you come to my village? And at first I thought I'd go for a vacation, like go to a waterfall, you can have wild durian and all these things. But then, in fact, it's my first time to step into Orang Asli village. I was raised out by a very typical Chinese family. In my family, it's a really Chinese-centric mindset. Parents who raised me out. In fact, in my family, my parents taught me to call Orang Asli as Sakai. which is you see in the movie. Yeah, we used to call them sakai, and we didn't really understand what sakai mean. And slave, yeah, slave. But we never know it means slave. We only know, oh, orang asli, we call them sakai. And then after I visit their village, I realized there's no electricity, there's no water supply. But it's really hard for a Malaysian to imagine on the other side of the world, in the same country, people are living in such a poor condition. And we as Chinese, we don't care. Not only Malay don't care, we Chinese don't care, Indian don't care. And in Malaysia, we are a country made up by different races. We have Malay, Indian, Chinese majority, and orang asli and different other races. And the funny thing is, in this country, is each different races, they just look at their own medias. It's more like different countries living in the same one peninsula. And the funny things about this country is each races, they see themselves, all of them see themselves as the victims of the government policies. You see, Malay believe they are the victims because they say we are the poor. All the Chinese are really rich. And then the Chinese say we are victims because we do not have the political power. And the Indian was, they don't have political power and they don't have financial power. And no one really look at the worst bottom part, which is orang asli. So the main motivation of why I'm making this movie, actually starting from, I'm asking myself, why can I live in the South Malaysia and I just don't care about orang asli, live in the really remote part? Am I racist? I'm asking myself, am I racist? I believe I can live in a more comfortable living condition because I'm Chinese. Is there a Chinese superiority in me that inherit from my parents? That's why I'm asking. And also, that's I start to shoot about orang asli. And also, I was questioned by the audience, like, why do I put orang asli and the May 13 together in the documentary? I was always asked by these questions. Okay, today if I'm saying, okay, I'm making a documentary about May 13, if I tell you my Chinese friend, okay, I'm going to make a documentary about May 13, people who come in and watch the documentary, they will expect, oh, this documentary is going to, from the point of view of Chinese, that we are victims of these incidents. That straight away they can empathy with the victims, Chinese empathy, Chinese victim in the incident. But I think we should tackle really the root of the question: how do we get the idea of this race? Why we have to separate each other with the idea of race, and how does race really come in Peninsular Malaysia? The idea of race comes with the colonization. I mean, before colonization, we do identify each other by different clan, different tribe, but we don't really putting racialized in the public policy, in the social hierarchy. But only since the colonization, then we start to segregate each other by using race, which is still affecting our life, Malaysian life nowadays. Nowadays, we are still have a policy which is called Bumiputra policy in Malaysia. Bumiputra means prince of the soul, son of the soul, which means the indigenous people of Malaya. But in Malaysia, they call themselves a Bumiputra, and also they claim themselves to be the indigenous people who enjoy all the benefit of this Bumiputra policy. But in fact, in my documentary, you can see that the earliest people who came, who are truly the indigenous people of the Malay Peninsula, is orang asli. But they do not enjoy any benefit of the Bumiputra policy. Which is why I want to question that as well. How do we start to using race as a category to racialize our public policies? If you back to the end of the 19th century, if you look at the British population census, the category of the races is so many, like 20 to 30. Before that, we Chinese, we don't really call ourselves as just Chinese. We will say we are from Guangzhou, Fuzhou, different clan, different dialect, based on different dialect. But you can, if you look at the progress of the of the population consensus all the way through until the 19th century, the category of the races become minimal, become narrowed down. And in the end, it left only Malay, Chinese, Indian, and others. Others include orang asli. So for people who are mixed marriage, there are a lot of descendants like Chinese, Malay mixed marriage, or Indian Chinese or Indian Malay mixed marriage. At the time when it comes to the 19th century, you have to choose. You have to choose you want to be Malay or Chinese or Indian. But there's no category you can say I'm a Baba, Baba Nyonya. Baba Nyonya, which means the descendants of Chinese Malay descendants. So when it comes to the independence, people are categorized using according to race. For me, my maternal grandmother is actually from Baba Nyonya. So in fact, for me, I'm not pure Chinese. A lot of the Malaysian is not like pure Chinese or pure Malay. But then government trying to using this race as an issue to easily manipulate citizens, to manipulate population. And the whole policy of this Bumiputra and national cultural policies is reinforced after the incidents of May 13. Yeah, after 1969. And then until like in the late 19th century, some of the Malay politicians were still saying that with the Chris is a Malay word, and then he will warn the population saying, if you don't vote for us, and then this May 13 will happen again. Yeah. If you challenge this Bumiputra policy, this riot may happen again, which is why it's so important for me to finish this film, to make this film. Yeah. So this is how I start to make the film. Any question from you? Right? Yeah, to share?
As I said in the very beginning, the coming new film, Holomi, is also about this communist issue, and we really look forward to watching it. Will it be filmed in Australia or in Malaysia?
It was partly filmed in Malaysia, 30% in Malaysia, secretly, because we shoot without license. Yeah.
But anyway, we will open up for question and discussion. Actually, there are seats in the front, so people in the back can move over here, so that over there and here, so that it will be easier for you to join the discussion. But yeah.
Quick question. I was going to ask you what the reaction was when you showed the film in Malaysia 2 weeks ago, as you told us. Yeah. I would like to know the reaction over there.
Actually, I'm in touch with the chairman of it was called a Freedom Film Fest, which is the only human rights film festival in Malaysia. I sent them my films very early in this year. Actually, they are very scared. Like after they watch the film, they are not sure how to program this film because it can cause trouble. For my previous films, it was banned. And finally, they decide, okay, we're going to screen it, and then we hope you to attend the Q&A sessions after the screening. Even until when I was in Kuala Lumpur, the night before, they receiving call from police. Yeah, like concerning what is this. We actually didn't publicize this film regarding May 13. In the synopsis, we take away all the May 13. We just say this is a film about orang asli, and this is a film about talking about a bit about race, but we didn't say May 13. So people can't is because of the poster itself is quite a significant incident of May 13. It's like by word of mouth, people passing around, and people can't. And it was a full house, and for you to know, like for last year. We didn't send for the film. We didn't send for the censorship. We didn't send because straight away we know this film. If we send for the censorship, it will be banned. And in Malaysia, the censorship is very strict. But we play around with the law because there is a kind of like hole in the streaming law. The content on the internet is still not yet under the censorship law. So if you play the film on the big screen by streaming, it's not under the censorship law. Yeah, this is the way how we do it. And on the location, you cannot have thumb drive, DVD, or any things that contain the films. So we say, oh, we play from the internet. And the police actually came and checked the screening materials. And people, the good thing is the people come, it's a full house. But you have to imagine, like last year, when there are still special agents in Malaysia. Special agent is a kind of a secret police that operate since the emergency. Like last year, the Freedom Film Fest also screened some of the very sensitive films. When the audience come, secret police actually take down all of them, their names and ID numbers, every one of them. It still happens in Malaysia. So when people come for Tree Remembers, they already prepared to be taken down names by the secret police. And the good thing is it's really a touching moment for me because the audience is multiracial. There is Orang Asli, there is Indian, there is Malay, and there is Chinese. And some of them actually told me they are kind of like, because when you are watching on the big screen, like questioning the Malay supremacy, and there are Malays sitting beside you. It's like the first time for them to experience this, like, oh, I'm watching a film questioning the Malay superiority. Would the guy beside me going to punch me or do something? In the beginning, they are like kind of tense and nervous when the screening. But after the screening, the atmosphere is very good. There's a lot of discussion, and there are a lot of human rights lawyers in the screening location. That is one of the reasons why we are quite confident with the screening. And the head of the FINAX, which is Malaysia Film Institute, the head of the Film Institute, it's the first time for him to visit this film festival. Because he heard from someone say, oh, this is a film about May 13, about race. And he did came, and he did finish watching the whole films. And he, because he was like, all the human rights lawyers made use of the chance to ask him, like, you have to open up the censorship during the Q&A session. Say, oh, people want to watch this film. Why you don't do anything to improve your censorship or these things? He did make some promise, but he did make some promise on the location, but we will see what is the goal following up. Yeah.
Other questions? Actually, it was our student, Zikri, a son of Soil, who recommended Director Lau to me. Okay, of course I heard of his film, I watched it, yeah, on the YouTube. But I heard from Zikri that you, from you are making this documentary on May 13. Actually, a few weeks ago, there is a conference on May 13, right? In May. Oh, a few weeks ago. Yeah, I remember I missed it. Yeah, right. So it's on May 13. But at that time, Lin Jianguo 老师 said that there's no public testimony on this official involvement or military involvement publicly. Any other comment or question? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. First of all, there was just one bit, very brief, there was a hidden camera, and I just don't understand why there was a hidden camera.
The loggers, right? Because it's still danger if you want to film them doing the logging, because it's illegal logging. Yeah, and there was the Orang Asli people who brought me there. They are scared. They're scared they could be slashed by them. Yeah, and those loggers actually they are very clever because those loggers are also Orang Asli, but from another kampung, another village.
Oh, so they are. You just said that the logging was illegal.
Kind of illegal, yeah.
So they were not allowed by the government, by the Malay
they are like kind of silently allowed by the Sultan. Because in Malaysia, the state natural resources belong to Sultan. You need to approve by Sultan. It's not controlled by the central government.
They
Uh,
now understand that
Sultan is kind of a Malay leader of different states. We have 9 different sultans in Malaysia, and each state they have one sultan to be kind of a symbolic leadership of the
Like a Muslim leader?
kind of Muslim
A monarch.
monarchy. Yeah, monarchy.
just
Yeah, king.
remember they have different kingdoms
Yeah.
before they became a nation state. So the kingdoms or in this
Yeah.
society, they are ruled by different king.
Yes.
So
This is why also the situation is so complicated, because even the central government say no, they can't control the sultan. Yeah, the sultan will say go ahead. Yeah.
next level leader,
Yeah.
local elite, power elite, or capital economic elite.
Yeah.
They really dominate the political issues. And maybe she has more questions before Raymond raise your question.
The other question is that I noticed that the Chinese spoke Chinese and then well, why did the Malaysian people in the film speak English?
No, because the Jubil, Mr. Jubil in the film,
The interviewer?
interviewer. He was English educated. He's more comfortable with speaking English.
I see.
Yeah. I mean, normally I won't force them to what language you want to use. It's like whichever language you are comfortable with that I can understand. So he will speak in his own language.
Oh, so you were the interviewer behind the camera?
Yeah, I'm the interviewer guy. It's really brave for him to come out and speak about this major thing, especially in front of Chinese filmmakers. Yeah.
One of the which one are you talking about?
Mr. Jubil is the father who sent his daughter.
Daughter to
Yeah.
to school.
Yes.
Like maybe I missed something. I still don't know. Like the introduction says that he's a college student
At that time.
then.
At that time. Yes. He was there. He was at the center of the major thing. Yeah.
Oh, I see. So he witnessed.
Yeah, he witnessed.
Okay.
He witnessed the killings.
I have the feeling like he feels kind of like maybe he feels guilty about it.
Yeah, guilty and fear, like all the witnesses that interviewer that I interview in the documentary, I always ask the questions like, if you look at the situation today in Malaysia, do you think maybe the thing will happen again? I ask all of them, and all of them tell me it will happen. If you look at the Malaysia today, the racial tension, the people, the hate speech, how people segregate each other, how people racialize the issue is worse than 1969.
Worse.
Yeah, it's worse, especially with on the internet or the hate speech. Yeah.
Sorry. At the beginning of the film, you have those pictures from the colonial times and the voice which reads text which establishes how the various ethnicities in Malaysia should live, which should be their right place in society, and so on. It's a text which sounds very ironic today, of course.
Yeah.
But where does it come from? And
The footage?
the footage and the voice.
The voice I remake it. Yeah.
You remade the voice.
I someone to narrate it.
And the text, where does it come from?
Some of the text is actually from the British colonial, their writing, their diaries.
Yeah.
Like one of the statements they say all Chinese are thieves, Indian are drunkard, Malay are. That is a very common belief that we still believe in nowadays Malaysia stereotype. It's a racial stereotype that so deep in us. So I purposely to put it in that to be ironic. Yeah.
But you adjusted the text a little bit?
Yeah, I just adapted it. I'm trying to say like because the way of how they rule the Malaysia is a very racial and colonized mindset. But the government today, we still impart all of these colonizer thought. Like we can rule by segregation on race. Yeah, which is why I'm trying to say in the terms. Yeah, same colonial. In fact, it's like colonizer just change of government.
I think Han and Raymond and Rungani. Okay, Han. And then you. Can you finish your question already?
Almost. I was just thinking that because you said that you asked every one of the interviewees whether they thought May 13th will happen again, and they all said yes. Why didn't you put that in the film?
What you mean? Why you?
Did you put like interviewees saying that?
No, that is off the camera. Most likely, that is off the camera. Yeah, it's like I already switch off camera, then I ask them again. Yeah. Because when the time happened, 1969, when the riot happened, no people actually, define it as a racial riot. You know, because we don't feel there is a trouble with the racial relationship. You see, you don't feel like this is a racial riot. We only know, okay, people killing each other. We thought like gangster fight. It's like Malay gangster fighting with the Chinese gangster. But then since 1969, my generation, I was born 1979, since then, people are educated and brainwashed saying this is racial riot. There is a bad relationship among the races, so that we need UMNO to take control of this, so the country will be in peace. You will brainwash about that. If you're saying a racial riot, there are a lot of racial conflicts before May 13th. Like Chinese, like different clan of Chinese working with certain Malay, Jawa, or Sumatra, they're fighting each other. Those are also racial riots. If you want to say racial riot, there are a lot of racial riots before this. But then why the government picked this one to exaggerate and then keep warning the people, say, oh, you have to remember May 13th. Because if you do not support the ruling government, then the May 13th will happen again. Because they're making it into propaganda. Yeah. Am I clear? Yeah?
Yes.
And if you have more questions, you can come back later. Raymond?
I do not have questions.
Anyone who wants to raise questions, just raise your hand. Okay, so I
I not really have a question, I just want to feel another context about the law instance. I believe there are monsters over there, right? Gangster over there. So this is very dangerous to film, right? That's why you're using the hidden camera. That's why you're using the hidden camera, right?
Yeah, you mean the logger? Yeah.
Because usually, by my understanding, usually this kind of company, they're not necessarily legal.
Yeah.
So hiring monster is part of their operatives. And sorry, my voice not very clear. I just want to share my impressions on the film is that recently there's another documentary being published in Malaysia as well and being praised on. The documentary called M for Malaysia. The documentary M for Malaysia basically is talking about how Malaysia overcome so-called racial tensions to win the so-called elections from the last year. But this is just praising the so-called unity without critical analysis of our so-called, common sinful past. I don't know how to describe it. I want to compare with these two films, which is today we see here right now, and there's another film, M for Malaysia, where I see this as a way that trying to understand what will go after the so-called historical moment where Malaysia, for the first time, a new government is on place, where they need to have a new kind of different state building and historical narrative building as well. I haven't watched M for Malaysia, and I doubt I will watch it because it will be quite a propaganda from what I hear. But it reminds me there's another incident happened just 2 months after the changing hand of government, where a group of historians and also activists, they're having a public forum talking about how Malaysia history textbook should go after the changing hand of government. And if I remember correctly, there's still heavily debate about whether the so-called Malay supremacy should be included or abolished, whether it's on the text or on the social reality. which means that I think these two films, M for Malaysia and also